மறக்காம சர்ப்ரைஸ் பண்ணுங்க. Thank you.
Hey guys, and welcome back. So in this exercise, we're going to see a game that came from a very high-level player, Grandmaster Aronian. And I always enjoy looking at games played in the London by super GMs. You really see how they're able to treat the position, come up with ideas and resources which maybe are somewhat hidden. And in this game, Aronian just made it seem like a piece of cake. So before we get to the really critical tactical moment, I do want to walk through some stages in the opening, give perhaps some additional bonus tactics. And starting with this move order, I want to make a point that after bishop e7, Aronian goes ahead and plays bishop d3. And there is an idea to take note of here. Usually when black plays bishop e7, the idea is to perhaps go for knight g5, as g5 would then be controlled by black's bishop. And of course we've seen this so many times where black wants to win the bishop pair pretty early with knight h5. In this case, Aronian ignores the threat for a pretty nice reason involving some tactics. So after bishop d3, black played b6 in the game, but just to demonstrate if black goes for knight to h5, I would actually like you to pause the video and find the best approach for white, what to do about the knight attacking the bishop. So the best move here is to simply move away, to play bishop to e5. And now it looks like black could perhaps play f6 and attempt to get this bishop forced back to either f4 or g3, and then trade it for the knight. But now there's a pretty spectacular move from white, which gives a very nice advantage. This move, knight to g5, which kind of comes out of nowhere. It looks like it's walking into some sort of fork, but really it's a counterattack against this knight on h5. And the knight on h5 is pretty much trapped. And the beautiful thing is that if black plays a move like g6, white has another very nice tactical shot, knight take h7, completely destabilizing black's whole king side, as g6 is now attacked, and if g6 is lost, then the knight will be undefended. So there's a few lines to demonstrate this. First of all, if f take e5, there's just bishop take g6, king has to move, queen take h5, white is doing incredibly well. Going back to this position, let's imagine king f7. Then white can continue the aggression and play a very nice move here, pawn g4, attacking the knight. Again, black doesn't really have time to take the bishop, because after pawn take h5, there's threats against this g-pawn. And meanwhile, same thing, if rook take h7, white can still take the knight. So black is under severe pressure still. Probably the best move for black is to play knight g7, but this walks into yet another tactical combination, knight take f6. And we can see white is having all the fun in these lines. It's after bishop take f6, queen f3 with the threat of g5, and white is guaranteed to win that material with a great position. So going back, I thought this is kind of a hidden tactic, which sometimes if you're playing through a high-level Grandmaster game, you won't always acknowledge these somewhat hidden lines, which probably aren't so obvious to the typical amateur player. But going forward here, b6 was played. As we see in this game, black employs a pretty typical setup with bishop e7 and then the eventual knight d7. So going forward here, white completes development. We'll zoom through the next several moves. Both sides got their intended setups, and now we see a very typical move in the London, this move queen f3 by Aronian, aiming to be more useful with the queen, ideas of queen h3, and of course creating some mating ideas against this h-pawn. So knight e8 was played, not the most active move from black, to say the least. Aronian continues with queen h3, but the idea of moving this knight back is now the f-pawn can lunge forward, and that's what black did, played f5, attempting to obstruct white's bishop from participating in the attack. Aronian continues, knight to f3, trade on e5 occurred, And knight d6 brings us to the key position where it was your job to figure out the best continuation from white. And in this position, I will say there are probably two good ways, or two very strong ways of continuing with the same idea. The move Aronian played wasted absolutely no time. He went for the immediate g4. And this is a type of move, if you're not familiar with the structure, it might look a bit risky to play, as you are opening up your king side. But it's such a strong attacking move, because the main point, you want to open up the g file to be able to attack black's king further. And the oncoming idea with king h1 and rook g1 makes white's attack just so much more stronger. So, of course, this pawn on f5 is pinned, and black is under even more pressure. Just going back one moment, white could start out with king h1 with the same idea of playing g4, and then eventually rook g1. This is also a very strong way of continuing. So let's see what happened in the game. After g4, black played c5, and I want to note that g4 is one of these intuitive moves which is going to open up tactical possibilities later. So it wasn't too necessary to perhaps calculate the lines after g4. It's just about seeing the ideas of how to continue with the attack. So after king h1, bishop g5, trade happened on g5, and now white starts seizing the initiative. After the g file opens, the rook comes to g1, and then after queen e7, there's actually a very beautiful way to finish off the game. And this is white to move and break through with the attack. Try your best to find the move that Aronian played in this position. Okay, so the best move is rook take g7. Pretty spectacular move, given that there's three different black pieces that can recapture: the queen, the knight, and the king. We'll go through each one. Of course, the knight would be the worst piece to capture with, because then white just has mate in one. Queen take h7 is just game over. If queen takes g7, which was played in the game, Aronian simply continues with rook g1, winning back the queen. After the trade on d4, white just takes the queen, and I'll just quickly go ahead and show how the game finishes. Black does have two rooks for a queen, but the combination of knight and queen, and in this case bishop, as we'll see, is just such a deadly combination. Aronian continues here with queen d4, creating threats along this long diagonal. And after the bishop was recaptured, the attack finishes off pretty smoothly for white. Knight f7, king g8, knight comes to h6, and then after knight take a5, knight take f5, white is just up more than enough material for, especially for a super GM, to convert the position. So black resigned here. Going back, after rook take g7, we should acknowledge king take g7, as it looks like a possible move in the position, but this just gets beaten by the very direct rook to g1. Now all of white's pieces are participating in the attack, and the king has nowhere good to go. If the king moves back to h8, there's a triple fork with knight g6, and white is now picking up the queen as this h-pawn is pinned to the king. Meanwhile, if the king doesn't move to h8, I mean, what else to do? There's king f6, but this just walks into a number of different moves. Perhaps bishop take f5 is the simplest, with the idea of queen h6 coming, and queen h6 is actually just mate in one in this position. So I really like this this approach by Aronian. He got kind of the standard London structure that we would expect, and then once black played this perhaps somewhat exotic f5 plan, he knew exactly what to do with this breakthrough of g4 and king h1 and rook g1, and it was such a nice way to create such a strong attack. And black really had almost no resistance in this game. So really hope you guys enjoyed that, and I would encourage you to continually follow the games of strong players, just because of London is such a common opening these days. Players like Aronian, Carlson, a lot of super GMs are playing it in blitz and rapid events, sometimes even classical events, and you can learn a lot from following these games. So really hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will see you in the next lesson.
மறக்காம சர்ப்ரைஸ் பண்ணுங்க. தேங்க்யூ.